Good day, everyone. My name is April Rose M. Gomez, an EB Economics student of Bukidnon State University. My video for today is all about all my learnings in the monetary economics. That monetary economics is a branch of economics centered on the monetary and monetary relationship in an economy. It concentrated on the links between money and prices and so on. It is a development of macroeconomics. When we say money, the first thing that will come in our mind is mode of exchange in order for us to have or acquire our desired goods or services. In this lesson, I was able to differentiate currency, money, and wealth from each other. Let me differentiate these three. First is the currency. It is the money in a form of paper or coins issued by the government and generally accepted as its face value. While on the other hand, money is any form of asset that are generally acceptable in exchange for goods and services. And lastly, the wealth. It is either human or non-human asset or resources with economic value possessed by a person, company, or nation. In this lesson, I was able to trace the beginning of our exchange system that involved different type of exchange method that is being used in order for us to purchase goods and services, which is the bartering, early money, coins, paper money, credit card, and lastly, debit card. I was also able to define the transmission mechanism. When we say transmission mechanism of the monetary, it describes the changes made by the Reserve Bank to the cash rate, the instrument of the monetary policy flowed through the economic activity and inflation. In a simple term, the transmission mechanism can be summarized into two stages. First, the changes to the cash rate flow to other interest rate in the economy. Second, changes to this interest rate affect economic activity and inflation. I also learned that when there is a low interest rate, it increases the aggregate demand by stimulating spending. Things that I have learned in this lesson is the demonetization of the old banknote series. Demonetization is the process by which a central bank removes the monetary value of a legal tender currency it issued. I learned that the demonetized money or currency are no longer acceptable as a payment for goods or services being rendered. I also learned that the reason why the BSP is demonetizing the banknote series is to safeguard the integrity of our currency, which is the peso. As a matter of fact, central bank around the world changes the design of their currencies that has been circulating for almost 10 years. During the discussion of this lesson, I have learned that there are three components of money supply, namely the currency with the people, second, demand deposit with the bank, and lastly, the time deposit with the bank. I was able to determine the main components of the supply of money, which is the coin, standard money, paper currency, and demand deposit or credit money created by the commercial bank. This lesson, I was able to know the four most relevant type of money, namely the commodity money, fiat money, fiduciary money, and lastly the commercial bank money. These four types of money is being used in order for us to have an easy access in buying all the things that we need in our everyday life. I was able to identify the players of money supply process, which is the bank, depositor, and the central bank. These three entities are responsible for ensuring that the financial supply is met. Also learned the effect of money multiplier in the circulation of money in our economy. Multiplier effect provides a numerical value or estimate a magnified expected increase in income per dollar of investment. I have also learned how money supply process affect the economy in general. An increase in the money supply means the more money is available for borrowing in the economy. In the short run, higher rates of consumption and lending and borrowing can be correlated with an increase in the total output of an economy and spending and presumable in a country's GDP. In this lesson, I have learned that the Fed can influence the money supply by modifying reserve requirements, which generally refers to the amount of fund bank must hold against deposit in the bank account. I also learned that the Fed can also alter the money supply by changing short-term interest rate. By lowering or raising the discount rate that banks pay on a short-term loan from the Federal Reserve Bank, the Fed is able to effectively increase or decrease the liquidity of the money. I learned that the banks play a major role in the money supply process by controlling the excess reserve and the amount of money they lend to borrowers. Things that I have acquired in this lesson is I was able to identify the different type of demand for money, namely the transactional demand, precautionary demand, and lastly the asset motive speculative demand. This type of demand for money is very essential in performing our daily transaction. Also is able to know the meaning of each type of demand for money. In our lesson, I have a chance to know why people desire to hold money. It enlightened my mind on what is the reason behind the savings of each individual. As a student like me, I was able to know the way how to safeguard my finances in the near future or even until now. Define the transmission mechanism and monetary. When we say transmission mechanism, it is the process through which monetary policy decisions affect the economy in general and in the price level in particular. The policy transmission mechanism is the connection between demand and supply of money and the effect to aggregate demand as a result of the macroeconomic policy laid down by the BSP to manage money supply created by the government. Money supply curve is vertical line. This is due to the fact that it is not dependent to interest rate. Lastly, I have learned that when the bank rate is decreased, aggregate demand will increase, foreign exchange will depreciate, causing import price to increase, then inflation will follow. So I was able to identify the different theories of monetary policy, namely the classical theory of monetary policy, Keynesian theory of monetary policy, and lastly the modern monetary theory. I'll with you regarding these three theories of monetary policy. First is the classical theory. I learned that classical theory is the basic monetarism which only concentrates on managing the money supply through the monetary policy. And one is the Keynesian theory of monetary policy. I have learned that Keynesians do believe in an indirect link between the money supply and real GDP. They also believe that expansionary monetary policy increases the supply of loanable funds available through the banking system, causing interest rate to fall. The modern monetary policy, I have learned that it is a heterodox macroeconomics theory that describes currency as a public monopoly and unemployment as evident that currency monopolies is overly restricting the supply of the financial asset needed to pay taxes and satisfy savings desire. I was able to know the origin of monetary policy and of the banking system. Monetary policy that we know today begin by the bank discounting the paper of other financial institutions, both government debt and commerce paper. So that in the early century there was what known to be goldsmith. When we say goldsmith, is the people who work in the metal gold and made beautiful things for people like jewelers and other things. In this lesson, I learned that monetary authority refers to the entity that manages a country's currency and money supply, often with the objectives of controlling inflation, interest rate, and real GDP or unemployment rate. Also able to identify the different type of financial market. Let me state first my learnings about financial market. It refers broadly to any marketplace where trading of security occurs, including the stock market, bond market, forex market, and other type of markets. Lesson, which is the monetary authority and monetary policy of the world's major economies, I was able to differentiate the different central bank of the major economies in the world. I was able to know the top 12 major economies of the world. The United States, China, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, France, India, Italy, Brazil, Canada, Russia, and lastly South Korea. We all know that different countries have different type of central bank and its components. This is the end of my video portfolio presentation of all my learnings in monetary economics this semester.